Hello. I wanted to talk a little bit about public opinion polling. Your discussion board question this week asks your opinion about public opinion polling, and so I thought I'd give you a little bit of background on the topic so that you can hopefully answer the question a little more fully. Sometimes people struggle with this question because they think about polling as being completely off base or not being accurate. The reality is that public opinion polling is pretty decent, although there have been some problems that have crept up in the last couple of years. But generally, if a polling organization is using a scientific process to perform their poll, they usually do pretty well at predicting what people actually think. And I hope that you'll read the assigned pages on this topic so that you can learn a little bit more about sampling and sample size and that sort of thing. But just as a little bit of background, when polls are done by a reputable organization, that is a news organization or some other company that wants to get an accurate picture of what the public thinks, they almost always are interviewing a random group of people. In fact, they always are interviewing a random group of people. By random, we mean that anyone in that population has an equal chance of being picked. This is based on statistical probability. I don't have time to go into that issue right now, but the best way to explain statistical probability is for you to think about maybe when you buy a lottery ticket. There are odds of winning. If you buy one lottery ticket, you have a certain set of odds. If you buy 2 or 3 or 4 tickets, your odds increase a little bit, but not by much, but they do increase. The same idea with a poll, that anyone living in that population has a known chance of being picked. And hopefully your chance of being picked is the same as anyone else's, although again the odds are going to be small that you'll actually be picked to participate. Most scientific polls contact people by telephone. That has, over the last probably 40 or 50 years, that's been the best way to contact a large number of people. Now, up until 15 or 20 years ago, almost no one had a cell phone, probably 20 years ago. But everyone had a landline in their home, and now that has changed to where many people, especially younger folks, but even middle-aged people, have cut a landline use in their home and rely on a cell phone. So if a polling organization is not contacting people by cell phone, they're not going to get a very good picture of the broader public because younger people and even some middle-aged people are relying on cell phones. And if you're excluding them from your sample, then you're not going to get their views are not going to be included in your survey. The goal of a survey, of a scientific survey, is to get a picture of what the rest of the population thinks. But you're basing it on the answers of a small group of people known as your sample. The sample should be a good cross-section of the public. So since you have older people in the population, you want older people in your sample. You have younger people in your population, you want younger people in your sample. You have women in your broader population, so you want women in your sample. You have people of different ethnic backgrounds in your broader population, so you want them in your sample. You have people of different sexual orientations and gender identities in your broader population. So if you want to figure out what the public's thinking, you need to make sure they're included in your sample. And you have people, if it's a national survey, you have people from all regions of the country, obviously living in the United States. So you want to make sure that all regions are represented in your sample. And again, the best way to do that is to choose people at random from the population. So that is how a scientific survey is done. Historically, and certainly up until recently, scientific surveys were considered to be pretty accurate. However, in this last election in 2016, most polls seem to indicate that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and of course we know that Donald Trump won the election. People have asked the question, well, how could the polls be so wrong? Well, actually the polls were not entirely wrong, because keep in mind that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, the national popular vote. And a lot of the polls that people were looking at as the election day got closer were these national surveys which showed Hillary Clinton winning the national popular vote. She won it by a couple of points, and that's what the surveys were showing in the days leading up to Election Day. But, of course, the election is not determined by who wins the national popular vote, but by who wins a majority of the electoral votes. and that's where Donald Trump was victorious, is by winning enough states, including Michigan, to win the electoral vote. But when you look at the national popular vote, the polls actually were not wrong. So in any event, I give you all that information as background. You will need to answer the question about what you think about polls. Some people think that they're a problem, that media organizations rely on them too much, and then they point to errors, or at least expected errors, like we saw in this last election, where people thought one candidate was going to win and the other ended up winning. But please try to keep all that in mind as you are working on that answer. And again, there are modern day problems with polls, such as the fact that a lot of people don't answer their phone when they don't know the number, and some polling organizations don't actually include cell phones. Others do. Many actually do include both cell phones and landlines, but some polling organizations do not include cell phones. So, at any rate, if you have any questions, please email me. And again, please read the assigned pages very carefully so you kind of have some background on this topic. All right, and then don't forget also that you have a critical thinking question this week in addition to the discussion board. All right, have a great week. Thank you.